get it. Yeah, I see we ain't been texting on the phone every night. What the fuck happened to our mess? I would be mad you got my piece, but I see that you just text me. It's my fault.
We had a video called How Drake Acted His Entire Career by a channel called Mommy on YouTube. Came out 2 days ago. Let's get into it.
Drake has several different personas, so many in fact that it's very difficult to distinguish his true personality, but we'll get to that. Through his collection of different faces, the artist has managed to take over the world, all because of one particular thing. Before the music, Drake began his career as an actor on the show Degrassi: The Next Generation, and it sort of has a parallel connection to his actual life. He portrayed the character James Jimmy Brooks in 7 seasons of the show, who was a school basketball
Yo, Chad, didn't Drake get like paralyzed in the show or something, Chad? Am I tripping? Didn't he get paralyzed?
star who came from a wealthy background, a character who would end up being crippled in the 4th season.
Okay,
Whilst
yeah.
he struggled a lot with his disability, he would end up finding a passion for music, although weirdly, Aubrey actually needed to be convinced to perform a rap scene within the show. The fact Jimmy Brooks began making music is ironic,
That's
considering
crazy.
the fact Drake eventually left Degrassi due to his own musical pursuits paying off, meaning that he no longer had time for this show.
That's crazy. He didn't want to rap for the show, but
Drake's
he blew up
time
as a
on
rapper.
Degrassi would set him up for the entirety of his music career. His experience in
Yo, that's
showbiz
crazy.
accounts for his hugely marketable personality.
Pete Davidson was on the show with him,
Ability
Chad.
also allows him to tap into different personas and versions of himself within the music, creating eras that allowed him to gain fans from all over the world. But what about him did people love so much? We'll begin with what most people consider to be Drake's greatest era, his conscious persona when the music was so much more lyrical. At the time, the artist could almost be considered a backpack rapper, which is a term.
What era would you say is like Drake's like lyrical? I don't know, like. I mean, Drake's not really. I don't know.
For thoughtful, intellectual, and introspective lyricism if it wasn't for his commercial success. This era gave birth to some of Drake's most articulate music with Nothing Was the Same, and If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, both being made during this period. Both of these albums are often considered peak Drake due to something that they have in common. These albums are much more focused on the rap side of Drake as opposed to his more melodic side that we had already seen in the past. Situated in the
That was a
midway
banger,
point of his
Chad.
career, Drake had already proven that he was a superstar. Both his debut album, Thank Me Later, and the following project, Take Care, had done huge numbers, propelling the artist into superstardom. Yet some people still had doubts about Drake.
Man,
Those people were in particular
Chad, people still like say Take Care is one of the greatest albums like of all time to this day, which is like kind of crazy.
rap fans. They had doubts that Drake was a good hip-hop artist, as sure he was a great hitmaker, sure he had a good mix of pop and rap, but could Drake produce a whole project of pure hip-hop? There was always this criticism that Drake felt like an outsider in the hip-hop genre, that he was acting as a rap artist instead of actually being one, a criticism that Kendrick
Chad, I feel
Lamar
like-
addressed in the recent beef.
I feel like sometimes people go into different rappers looking for different things. Like if Drake's not a hip hop artist, why go to Drake looking for hip hop? It's like this one guy I was talking to at my job. We were listening to Cardi, and it's like, yeah, he was like, yeah, Cardi just don't talk about nothing for real. And I'm like, bro, you're trying to find lyrics in Cardi, like it's Cardi. You gotta come here for the beat and the vibe and just how it's gonna have you geeking and tweaking. Like you can't really like go into it looking for him to change the world with his lyrics. Like that's not what he's here for. You know what I mean?
These allegations may have stemmed from several places, his background in TV, his Jewish origins, or even the fact that he is from Canada. Either way, Drake didn't dwell on it and took this as an opportunity to prove himself.
And he light skinned. People just
When
love
it came
fucking with light
down
skinned
to
dudes,
it,
man.
it turns out that Drake could in fact produce amazing hip-hop music. Whilst there were still elements of pop and R&B mixed in, it was evident that Drake's lyrical ability was on par with other hip-hop artists. Whether he actually wrote it or just performed it is another question, however. Whilst neither of these projects actually took
That's
a
the
Grammy
biggest
home,
question,
they were
probably.
both nominated for Best Rap Album, with Started From The Bottom and Energy also being nominated for Best Rap Song. These two albums earned Drake a lot more respect from the hip-hop community, And whilst not everybody was convinced, Drake was already moving on to bigger things, focused on
Did What a Time to Be Alive come out around that time
all
too?
over the world. After Drake had proved the critics wrong with his previous music and persona, he would embark on a musical journey across the globe.
If TikTok existed back then, that boy wouldn't have been able to live after that.
Like Thanos collected Infinity Stones. It all began with the album Views. Whilst Drake had strayed into genres like Jamaican dancehall in the past, this album is
From
where
One
he's fully
Dance, yeah,
committed
that's
to
what
the
I'm saying.
sound. Perhaps
Yeah,
this
One
is
Dance
due
is
to
the only
his
time he
close
really like
connection
peaked
to
into that for real. I
Rihanna
feel
at
like
the time, who was famous for her Caribbean roots.
I got a
After
couple other
all,
songs
she's
actually.
been a massive influence on Drake's music in the past, both for better and for worse. Whilst Drake is proud of his Canadian roots, it seems his background in acting means that he must be in character for each of his musical eras. At this point in his career, the artist would often be heard speaking and singing in a Jamaican accent,
And more tune for your head top, so watch how you speak on my name, you know?
leading to a whole lot of people accusing Drake of being a culture vulture, as earlier in his career he had a much more typical Canadian accent. Honestly, it seems as if Drake just attempts to embody whatever country his music is influenced by. You'll even see him doing it to this day with tracks like Meet Your Padre.
I want to meet your madre, pay my respects to your padre.
Yeah, this song is horrible, chat. But I feel like, I mean, honestly, there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. I feel like he just molds himself to whatever is popular. Like, which is like, I feel like that can make you a very good person. Like, if you're a YouTuber and you can like go with every time, like if one moment everybody's gaming, you're very good at playing games, you're entertaining, take your talents over there. Like, that's what you're gonna do. Like, I feel like there's nothing wrong with like lane switching. You know what I mean?
However, there is no better example of Drake switching his nationality.
That's
than
why he gets so much
Project
money,
One
lane
Life,
switching. Like,
a
it's so
mixtape
like,
filled to the brim with different genres and sounds. The project's name itself comes from a Jamaican term that was popularized by Vybz Kartel, an artist that Drake has stated is a huge inspiration for his foray into dancehall. Aside
Casting that
from
met him at the
Jamaica,
Grammys.
The UK has also been a huge influence on Drake throughout his entire career, with the artist being linked to the country all the way back in 2011, stating that Sneakbo, a relatively small British artist, was an inspiration for his album Take Care. Whilst More Life is a collection of various sounds, it is largely dominated by the acoustics of the UK, with several songs being heavily reminiscent of grime, a sound developed in the UK. Critics appreciated the huge mix of sounds on the tape, leading to the album, in typical Drake fashion, breaking
That was a song that
records
sounded like
in regard
X.
to sales numbers. It also features several British artists, including
Wasn't it?
Skepta,
Am I tripping,
Gigs,
chat?
Georgia Smith, and Sampha, most of whom Drake's American audience would have little to no knowledge about. Drake even adopts the lingo of
Sampha,
the
we know
British
Sampha, bro, don't-
artists and uses it multiple times throughout the project, really playing into his UK personality.
Oh, what's poppin'? Man's never been in marquee when it's shut down, eh? Trust me.
Drake's awareness of the UK music scene would continue in the following years, with the superstar artist continuing to put on British artists, with him teaming up with Headie One and Central C on respective freestyles. But whilst Drake's love for British culture is massive, it obviously isn't his true persona. So what is? But before we get to that, make sure you subscribe, as a large portion of you haven't clicked the button yet. There is only one true persona that Drake consistently comes back to throughout his career, and that is his lover boy act that the artist originally blew up from, much to the discontent of many hip-hop fans.
He made music for
Drake's
women.
emotions on his earlier albums like Thank Me Later and Take Care were so strong that the artist was quickly labelled as soft, a label that is stuck with him throughout his career. And this is completely understandable when you consider that a large percentage of Drake's music is about love, women, or getting his heart broken. The topics that Drake was singing and rapping about were far from ordinary back in the early 2010s. Apart from Kanye with 808s, rap artists were hesitant to let their emotions bleed through into the music, perhaps due to how fans of the genre may perceive them. The vulnerability that Drake had shown is one of the main reasons for his popularity across the world, with the artist also garnering a large female audience due to his somewhat feminine personality. What people didn't see coming, however, is the same topics from 15 years ago still being a large part of Drake's personality now. In 2021, Drake released
Yeah, that was a big argument people had. People said that like he's still childish and he hasn't grown up at all. Like, how do y'all feel about that, chat?
the album Certified Lover Boy, a project that is very reminiscent of his earlier work, with a return to emotional topics and a blend of rap and pop and R&B. This album came after a period where Drake really played into his mob ties on projects like Dark Lane demo tapes and Scorpion, with the artist experimenting with a more drill-influenced sound, creating songs like War and Demons. Critically, neither of these projects were highly acclaimed, which could explain the return to his emotional sound. It always sounds a lot more authentic when Drake is singing about heartbreak and love as opposed to being from the streets. And whilst there's no doubt that Drake could get by in most genres, it's clear where his specialties lie. A lot of people want Drake to evolve, to speak about different, more pressing topics, but this is just who Drake is, and no one will be able to change that. Either way, all of these different personas, musical eras, and variations in sound has allowed for Drake to generate a huge fan base worldwide. Tapping into all veins of music has given the artist world domination status, and it all stems from Degrassi.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's really like your opinion if you look at it as a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like they're really just saying that like he can fit into every lane. Like I don't really see what's wrong with that. And like saying he acting, I mean, you might be kind of reaching just because he was an actor. I don't know. Yeah, definitely. I think they're kind of reaching.